The next few lessons are going to involve y equals mx plus b, coming up with equations of lines given various different information. So we're going to keep always going back to y equals mx plus b that we've talked about recently in this lesson, the next one, and so on. All right, so mostly it's just going to be some examples of how we can work with it. So I'm going to jump right in with an example. Find the slope and the y-intercept of 3x minus 4y equals 12. All right, so let's just recap for a second. If I have y equals mx plus b, then I know that m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So all I have to do is get an equation in that format, and then I can answer the question. So maybe I'll do a little color coding here. I'll use green to show slope. I'll use blue to show y-intercept just when I go through today's lesson. All right, so I need to have an equation in this form where it's y by itself on the left-hand side, and then it'd be the number in front of x will be my slope, and the number that's by itself will be my y-intercept. So what that means that I need to do is, if I take the equation here, 3x minus 4y equals 12, I'll rearrange it like I'm rearranging an equation, to solve an equation, except I'm just going to get y by itself. So what do we do? Well, the first thing I want to do is probably copy the equation down again, 3x minus 4y equals 12. And since y is what I'm trying to isolate, right, in slope y-intercept form, y is by itself, I need to get everything else to the other side of the equation. So just like solving any equation, I do that by doing opposite operations in the opposite order. So first, I can subtract 3x from each side. And I'm going to put that'll give me negative 3x. I'm not going to put that at the end of the equation. I'm going to slip it in just after the equal sign and in front of the 12, because that's where I would expect to see it in the form y equals mx plus b. Then I'm going to divide everything by negative 4. If I just go through and go divide by negative 4, divide by negative 4, divide by negative 4, what happens is I'm left with just the y, which is, again, what I want, and then I can tidy up what's on the right-hand side. I've got negative 3 over negative 4. Those two negatives cancel out, leaving me with just 3/4. And I've got positive 12 divided by negative 4, so that positive and negative simplify down to a negative 3. And now it's in slope y-intercept form. The number in front of the x is my slope. The number that's by itself is the y-intercept. So slope, I'm just going to do m equals 3/4, and b equals negative 3, and that's my answer to finding the slope and the y-intercept. If the slope is negative 2/3 and the y-intercept is 5, write the equation of a line. All right, no problem. They've given it to us in the format we're already using. Slope, I'm coloring green today, and y-intercept, I'm coloring blue. All I have to do is put the numbers in their appropriate spots. So I'll put negative 2/3 in for m. I'm going to slip that negative sign up on the top because I like to have the negative sign in the numerator always. I'm going to put the 5 in for b, and that's the end of that one. The slope is 2, all right, no problem, and a point on the line is negative 3, 4. Okay, we haven't seen one like that before, but that's okay. What we need to recognize for this one, in order to answer it, is that any ordered pair, this negative 3, 4, is always in the form x, y. So we know that we've got this point, negative 3, 4, that's on the line that we want, and when x is negative 3, y is also, well, y is negative 4 on this line. So I can work with y equals mx plus b, put what I know in there. again, I know the slope, so y equals 2x plus b, but I don't know what b is. That's what's holding me back. Let's try some different colors then. Maybe I'll use yellow for the x and orange for the y. And we do have an x and a y in the equation, right? So if I replace x with -3 and I replace y with 4, then what I'll be left with is an equation that has b in it, and I can then solve that equation. So I'll put 4 in for y, I'll put -3 in for x, and let's solve it. So I want to get b by itself. So first I'll simplify a bit. 2 times -3 is -6. And now to get b by itself, I'm going to bring that -6 to the other side. In other words, I'm going to add 6 to each side. Now b is by itself. So b equals 10, or 10 equals b. It doesn't matter which side of the equation the b is on. But now I've got what I want. What was I using? I was using blue for y-intercept. Now I've actually got my y-intercept, don't I? So now I can go back and say, okay, y equals 2x, so I'll put y and x back in there, but y equals 2x plus 10. So the 2 was given to me originally. I had to go through some steps to find out what b was, but now I've got the full equation. Example 4 is really the exact same thing, just with different numbers. They give me the slope. They give me an x and a y. Yes, these were the colors I used here. So here's my m, here's x, here's y. Y equals mx plus b becomes, oops, I just did the wrong color, mx plus b. So if I put all the numbers in the proper spot, I get -2 equals -3 times 1 plus b. -2 equals -3. Add 3 to each side to get b by itself. B equals 1. Finish the equation. Y equals -3x plus 1. So that was exactly the same as example 3, except that we just used some different numbers, different points. Example 5. The y-intercept is -5 and a point on the line is 1, 4. Okay, y-intercept, I've been using blue to represent that. That is something that we want. We've got an x and a y coordinate again. So I can do the same thing as I did in the previous examples. But in the previous 2, I was given the slope and I had to find the y-intercept. In this case, I am being given the y-intercept, and I'm going to have to find the slope. So I'm going to have to try to find out what m is. That's the only difference, but it's going to come down to solving an equation again. Y is 4, don't know m, x is 1, b is -5. All right, so I put everything in its proper place. That's the key. Simplify things a bit. So 4 equals m1 just means the same thing as 1m. When I've got things where I've got a variable and a number together, like I do here, I always want to put the number in front. Even if the equation starts out by looking m1 like that, that doesn't make sense. It's very confusing to people. So the first thing you should always do is rearrange it, put the number out front. So 4 equals 1m, or if it's 1m, I could even just call it m. I don't need that 1 written down. And these two signs here, again, simplify to give a negative overall. So now I can solve this to find out what m is. So 4, and then I will add 5 to each side, and 1m is just m, so I can just leave it like that. So this becomes 9, and now I know that m is 9. That was the missing thing from what I needed for my equation. So y equals 9x minus 5. Whoops. Minus 5. So there's my slope. There's my y-intercept. It did the exact same thing as before, except that I was finding m instead of finding b. And example 6, just same as example 5, different numbers. We'll go through it. We got the y-intercept. We've got the x-coordinate. We've got the y-coordinate. So we will put things in their appropriate places. So we have 6 equals m times negative 2 plus 3. Again, let's tidy it up a little. m negative 2 is very confusing. What I should write it as, what I need to write it as, is negative 2m. And now I can go about solving this for m. So my first step would be to subtract 3 from each side. And I would get 6 minus 3 equals negative 2m. So 3 equals negative 2m. Then I would divide each side by negative 2 to get rid of that negative 2 on the right-hand side. And I'd be left with negative 3 over 2 equals m, because these cancel out. And I'm going to move the negative sign to the front, and then what I've got here is a slope of negative 3 over 2. And so putting it together, I get y equals negative 3 over 2x plus 3. And again, same idea, and there's our answer.